going on, guys? Greg Ferris back here at Ferris for Fitness, and today I wanted to take a quick moment of your time to hopefully talk to you guys about training to failure. I get a lot of questions about this. It's still something that I see a lot of people curious about. Also, I don't want to say doing it wrong or things like that, but something that just not a lot of good information out there. So I figured I would give some people some practical applications, kind of how to use that. Kind of what sparked this was I'm just sitting here, have a little pre-workout meal, some Apple Jacks and Cellucor Whey, which I've tried the peanut butter marshmallow now, and it is awesome. Still highly recommend that. Just doing some like reading and stuff. I get a lot of questions about like training books and nutrition things that I read, and to be honest with people, I haven't read that many just like books about nutrition and training. It's more of like research reviews and things online, but I did pick up the Max Muscle Plan by Brad Schoenfield, I believe his name is, and I'm about 20-25 pages in, and it seems like a really good book so far. He talks about a lot of stuff I've kind of heard of before, but it's always good to kind of hear it again. Hopefully I'll take some good information out of that. But I wanted to talk to you guys about some basic tips when it comes to training to failure. Again, like always, it is not going to be black and white. No, this is just how it is. It's kind of just some practical stuff I think everyone can use based on what I've seen, what kind of makes sense, and also some what the research says, right? So you usually have two camps when it comes to training to failure. One of the camps is usually like, you know, the HIIT routines, you know, every set to failure, super intensity, Rocky movie guys. And then you have the people who are like, you can't train to failure ever, or else you're just going to overtrain, and you can't, 5 reps away from failure, you know, the other extremist. And like 99% of things when it comes to nutrition and training, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and that's why I'm making this video. So I wanted to kind of give some practical recommendations, like I said, and here they are. So just kind of some general rules when it comes to why you should train to failure or why you shouldn't train to failure. So I'm not going to get into, you know, the incredible scientific reasoning behind, you know, chronic fatigue and overtraining, and is it psychological or is it muscular or, you know, neurological, all that stuff. I don't have time for that, nor do I understand it good enough, but it does make sense when you think about it more from a common sense point of view. Training to failure can be beneficial. I'll start with how it can be beneficial. So, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, the pump doesn't make you grow, and again, I'm not going to get into the whole, you know, debate about that in this video, but I do believe there's probably some merit to, you know, not necessarily just the pump, but, you know, cell swelling and, you know, maybe an enhanced protein synthesis. We're kind of seeing that with occlusion training, you know, definitely going to be secondary to progressive overload, probably volume, things like that. But again, not saying it's the reason you grow, but it could be a contributor to the reason you grow. So with saying that, training to failure, if anyone's trained to failure, they could probably tell you that it does increase your pump. And again, that can kind of help you in that regard. Just kind of more metabolic stress, more lactic acid buildup, all of those things that, again, could potentially help you with muscle growth. So that's kind of the good about it, right? And then the bad effect of it is usually you can't train as often, especially if it leads to soreness. It can lead to, I don't want to say just overtraining, but maybe like a depressed state when it comes to training. You're not as motivated to go to the gym. Definitely if you're training to failure on like your first exercise, it's going to affect your second exercise and vice versa. So those are kind of the negative effects about training to failure, just in general. And then here are some practical ways how you can kind of use the beneficial stuff and then kind of stay away from the negativity of training to failure. So I'll start with the positive again. So how you should try to use failure to your advantage, just a kind of a general rule, again, not totally black and white, is the less muscles involved and the higher repetitions you're performing that exercise, the more frequently you can take that to failure. And then the more muscle groups involved and the lower the reps, the higher the weight that's being used, the less often you should take that to failure. So if you don't understand now, I'll give you just a really simple example. A bicep curl, you can't use a lot of weight, typically going higher reps, and it's one muscle group, hopefully, if you're not rocking back and forth, right? So you can probably take your bicep curls to failure a lot more often than a deadlift, where you're probably moving quite a bit of weight with a deadlift. You're obviously using a lot of muscle groups with a deadlift, and generally people don't deadlift in the 10 to 15 rep range. So that's, again, kind of common sense things. So again, the more muscles you're using, heavier weight, lower reps, all of those things tend to stay with, you know, 1 left in the tank, 2 left in the tank. And then again, as you progress to, you know, single joint movements, the weight's getting lighter, the reps are getting heavier, you can kind of toward to push the envelope as far as going to failure. You're probably going to get more, you know, of the beneficial effects that way anyways. You don't necessarily get a huge, you know, I don't train high repetitions to failure on like compound movements anyways, but you're going to get more of an increased pump and self-swelling and things like that with isolation movements anyways. So if that's what you're going for when training to failure, it's best to go with that regardless of the negative effects you might get with training really heavy movements. So hopefully that gives you guys some insight. Again, it's a very, very touchy subject when it comes to, you know, all the research. There's a ton of variables. But again, I wanted to get just some practical stuff out there for people who really don't care about all the science, that just want to be like, you know, how can I use failure, or how often should I use failure? Again, I'm not going to say every 6 weeks or every this or that. Again, it like the answer to most things, it depends. And the simplest way I can explain it to people, and this is going to work for a majority of people, like I said, the bigger the movement, the more muscles involved, the heavier the weight, tend to stay away from failure. Probably never attempt to go to failure on movements like that, heavy squats, heavy presses, things like that. But at the same time, if it does happen, don't freak out and think you're going to lose all your gains, okay? Just don't attempt to achieve failure. And then again, as you move across the pendulum to the single joint movements, you can tend to push the intensity a little bit more. You're not going to have more of the negative effects from, you know, tricep pushdowns to failure as you would deadlifts, things like that. So that's it for the video, guys. You know, check out that book. It was pretty cheap, about 15 books on Amazon. Hopefully it'll be some other good information. Again, it just kind of, I read a little part about there of training to failure, and it kind of helped me really understand that, and it made sense to me. Really good book. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, go ahead and like it. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and like the Ferris for Fitness Facebook page as well. Until then, guys, all more good stuff coming soon.